Greetings, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome to Shema ANU. Let me know if you can hear me. I we are live on both YouTube and Facebook. So just let me know, put a one or a two in the chat so that I know you can hear me and we can move on. We can move forward. We can jump into this. You don't have to stay too long here this evening. But welcome, blessed love, and Shabbat Shalom to you, Cruz. Brother Cruz, thank you for joining us. Greetings to those of you who are streaming in and coming on into the space. Let me know if you can see me and hear me because I think I went live a little earlier, so I want to make sure I can't see anyone in the chat. So I want to just make sure you all can hear me well and see me before I move forward. Just let me know. Clearly. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Safta Arlene. All right, welcome. I am Ahoti Morea. Welcome to another Shema ANU segment. We are going to jump into, this is part 10 of the economics discourse from the ANU way. But before we do, let me greet everyone in the chat. Let me greet the Most High, sorry. So I want to open up by just giving a good, we're live on Facebook too. I could see the thumbs up. So, you know, if you're on Facebook too, you know, you're welcome. We're not going to ignore our Facebook people. All right. So I wanted to open up by just giving thanks and praise to the Most High for discernment and for clarity and, you know, the space, the community of ANU to be able to grow. And even when you don't grow or you don't want to grow, you are required to. And, you know, sometimes we hear the word required and we think, okay, well, it's just because, no, you know, we become so complacent and laid back. And, you know, I know that's one of the things for me. So I want to give thanks and praise this Sabbath, this 6th day but it's not Sabbath yet, but this 6th day for the opportunity to be with community and in community and to learn culture, right? So I give thanks for that. And I want to add on my praises by pulling from 1 Samuel 2:8. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, or the Most High, and on them he has set the world. So this is my offering to open up today. And I want to say honors to Chief Yuya for this great body of work that he has shared with us and the community, right? I want to give thanks for the community that he has grown so that we have a space to minister and to serve, right? Because we're a service ministry and it's a service ministry. So we give thanks and praise for that. And I want to say honors to the brothers and the sisters who are in the space. And, you know, if I'm honoring the brothers, I'm honoring the whole homestead. So that's covering and everybody attached to covering. So sisters, don't feel left out. All right. Thank you for just being in the space, and welcome guests as well. Please feel free to engage in the chat with us. Again, remember, we are on Facebook and on YouTube this evening, and moving forward, we will be in both spaces. So, you know, if you need to go to Facebook, do so. It will help the ratings too. So I'm going to recite, as is ANU fashion or Shema fashion, I'm going to recite a condensed excerpt from the ANU Way Foundations. This book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. This book right here. Discuss the convictions of this work with your ANU brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people This publication should be read daily out loud. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. Let's deliberate. So, let me see who else is streaming in. Sister Deidre Sully. The Little Chip Monster is back on the song. Oh, really? Are you all hearing crinkling songs in the background? Really? It's staticky? Okay. Is it still staticky? It might be the, oh my goodness, I'm going to try. Everything was in order, baby, before I started. What's going on? Oh my goodness. All right. Maybe it's just too many devices. So I'm going to move the other device a little further away. Is the Dorito Chip Monster still at large? Please let me know. And if that's the case, maybe I'll have to end and restart broadcast, because I know that noise, that sound can be a bit annoying. Just let me know. It's better? Oh no, what is it? I think it may just be because, let me see if I can turn up the sound maybe. All right, in another couple minutes, just let me know if the sound is still staticky. Maybe it will correct itself, right? Maybe that will happen over time. Pardon the lengthy pause. So poverty, try going off stream and come back again. Don't end the live. Ooh, all right, go off stream. Okay, let me see that. All right, I exited and re-entered. Let me know if that's better. It should be. And it should be. Cross everything you have. Everything. Chopsticks, fingertips, everything. Awesome. All right, good. Thank you very much, Deidre. All right, good. Thank you, ANU Radio. Much better. Chip Monster, be gone. Okay, so poverty, right? Today's theme and focus is avoiding poverty. As I was thinking about putting the label on the title, I kept saying poverty. Why do we have to focus on poverty? And when I saw the thumbnail, the title was avoid poverty. So it's like, that felt a little better. So I'll read the full paragraph and then we'll break it down piece by piece. Poverty is worse than the plague. As ANU, we must avoid poverty at all costs. There is nothing redemptive or virtuous about not being able to sustain oneself or positively contributing to your community financially. When we live a life of poverty, we are quicker to violate the laws of the originator of the law. Poverty brings forward the worst in people, And when we get to that last piece, there's just so much to discuss. But, I wanted to start off with what is poverty? What is poverty? I think we have ideas around what we think poverty is and, who causes it, who's to blame, who's not, But poverty is a state of where one lacks the usual or socially acceptable amount of money or material possessions. So lack of resources, right? And lack of a means to satisfy your basic needs. That's poverty. And, as I read that piece, the very first thing I started thinking about was the fact that as ANU, we're charged to enrich and enliven, and that's not the words exactly, but we're charged to increase the spaces and the land and the area that we are in and the environment that we are in. And so, sometimes it may be difficult to do that if we don't consider ourselves be above poverty. All right. And if we have not steered ourselves away from poverty, it becomes very difficult to do all of those things. But I also considered the Clubhouse, which is a very powerful piece to re-listen to if anyone who's coming in, a guest, and you were not present for that live Clubhouse broadcast that Chief did, where he broke down, I think the title was Does Your Money Vibrate? You know, there's a lot about the mindset that we create. And, you know, me too, I have a very poor mindset when it comes to money, but it's the mindset that kind of generates, you know, it's the beginning stages of what we manifest and we generate. So that's a good podcast, not podcast, but Clubhouse Live to revisit. Right? Greetings, Akuya, greetings, Emma Akuya and Aki Zaya. So poverty can be financial as well as we can have a poverty mindset. All right. So, but today our focus is literally financial poverty, you know, and it states so clearly. That's what we're really looking at. But there are several, I was thinking about what are the different ways that, you know, like poverty manifests, or how does it manifest? And there's several different like categories of poverty, right? So there's like situational poverty. And I mean, put it in the chat if you could think of an idea that is a representation of what situational poverty is, right? It goes without saying that the name kind of helps to identify what type of poverty or what causes it. It's really based on circumstances, situations, right? Something has happened, and as a direct result of that thing happening, boom, you know, a person, a family, anyone can end up in poverty because of that. So drop it in the chat an example that comes to mind immediately of a situation that would be situational poverty. Right. A situation that would be situational poverty, or an example of situational poverty. All right. And I know there's like a little bit of a delay, but you know, I'll keep going. So the next is generational poverty. And of course, I'm sure everybody kind of, you know, light bulbs go off. It indicates that there's poverty within a family over a period of time. The interesting thing though, it's 2 generations. So generational poverty is specific to 2 generations, and not what we call societal generation, like X and Z and all the different things that we use to identify societal generations or social generations. They're talking about from family generations, right? So that's 2 generations. So can you think of, I'll pause. Greetings, Ima Precious. Welcome, welcome. ANU Radio says health emergencies that change earning potential. Yes, definitely. That's a great example of situational poverty, where something can happen. You know, your health gives in, your health takes a turn for the worse, and that can happen. And I'll go as far as to say for the last 2 years with the big P that has, you know, like hurt so many people, that has been a direct cause of situational poverty for many. All right. So thank you for that. Generational poverty, we just covered. Absolute poverty, which is like just absolutely clearly no opportunity to access resources, right? So that's complete. Your voice starting to crack a lacking again. Oh, oh boy, is it better now? Oh my goodness. I may have to exit the stream and come back again. Just thank you for keeping me abreast with how the vocals sound, because yeah, thank you for keeping me, making me kind of stay abreast with that, because it's the static. Okay. I'm going to try and exit again and re-enter. Maybe that would help a little bit. All right, give me 1 second. I'll be back. I'll be back. All right. So I'll just jump right in. If it worked, great. If it didn't work, I'm just going to keep going. Rural poverty is, that poverty where people are isolated, right? And there's urban poverty as well too, and relative, which is living with about 50% or below the average income, right? So there are all these different categories of what we identify as poverty. And of course, those indicate what would cause poverty. But tonight's discussion again is a focus on financial poverty. And I wanted us to think about the coupling of the two in the sentence, poverty is worse than the plague. So identifying that poverty is directly connected to, not being able to match what is considered socially acceptable amounts of money, not being able to satisfy your basic needs, that is being likened to the plague. So it's like, well, I know what the plague is, but I went into the Hebrew and I looked at plague. So a plague, of course, we know is like affliction, disease, severe calamity. And when you think about not being able to have access to, when there's food insecurity, when there's lack of access to maybe clean water or to medical care, these things, calamity, disease, and affliction, can become a part of what is, a person's everyday journey or family's everyday journey. And so we see why avoid poverty is important, because you're not even living a life of subsistence. So one of the, I think it was Numbers chapter 11:33. If anyone can help me find it and put it in the chat, that would be awesome. I'm gonna highlight your name and give you some points. Gosh, joking. I'm joking, but Numbers 11:33 actually makes reference to the plague, and this is where we see like the children of Israel, along with like a mixed multitude of people, they begin complaining about the fact that they don't have food. They're in the wilderness, right? And they're complaining that they don't have food, and so they're just complaining. And the Most High decide, I'm just gonna bun up everybody. So first he gave them quail, and everybody's out there pulling quail as the flesh of the quail was in their mouths, and they were eating the food. It just, he burn up everybody. 11:33 says, but while the meat was still between their teeth and before it could be consumed, the anger of the Most High burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. So you're probably saying, well, why am I connecting the two? There's a level of, in that particular excerpt, there's a level of ingratitude, right? There's a level of like a lack of trust. And so, I wanted to see how the two compares. Like if someone is living in poverty, if you're impoverished, then this is literally equivalent to being, tormented with pestilence and things like that. And toward the end, of course, of this paragraph, it says, it brings out the worst in people. It brings out the worst in us if we were to live and continue to live in poverty and not avoid it, And so there's another piece that I wanted to pull out. The word for plague in Hebrew is makal, right? The word for plague in Hebrew is makal, and it actually means a blow, a wound, or to slaughter, right? So but this is making reference to the slaughtering that happened of the people who were, lack of trust, complaining, Israel, just complaining. Um, and the name of that place where they were burnt up is called Kibroth Hittava. And so that means graves of the longing. So when I looked at the name graves of the longing, this is where they were buried, and the people were desirous, longing, not satisfied, complaining, So I think there's a lot that we could get from identifying maybe how we can get on the path of poverty. Not just Sometimes it's not just based on the patterns of finances, but possibly from the place or the angle of being dissatisfied, being lack of trust, and just complaining, not satisfied. Let me see. Brother Antonio says taking out a loan for liability, like a car loan, or not being able to pay off a credit card. Right, right. You know, that's a great example. That actually brings me back to, it makes me think about a couple of paragraphs Strongs ago, we explored a paragraph that actually spoke about the patterns that we live out in our lives, the patterns of decisions that we make leading to poverty. Right? I actually have like pulled the piece out and I stuck it here because it's like I want to make sure to bring it back to that. That's exactly what you're highlighting, Brother Antonio, as an example. And that the taking out a loan for a liability, right? And a car, which is like a depreciating asset. Sapta Gertrude, greeting. Chief, peace and greetings and welcome into the space. Thank you for joining us. Who else is coming on in? Sapta Arlene says, when you spend more than you earn, can be a poverty mindset. This is true. When you spend more money than you earn. This is true. And it becomes, sometimes it becomes very easy to get stuck in that space. Very, very easy to get stuck in that space. As even the example that ANU Radio, I was about to say, Sister Shabani, ANU Radio gave to us, it can, that particular thing can lead to another. It's almost like a domino effect with a few of these things when it comes to poverty and the plague. So the question is now why? Why poverty? So I thought of, I'm going to go back to the earlier in the section on education. We covered that the patterns of life that we pursue lead to a human experience of poverty. And these patterns, we're going to talk about some more of those patterns a little bit later on, and Brother Antonio gave us an example. But we have to be able to also lean on wisdom if we're going to avoid poverty, leaning on wisdom. And I think I'm going to go back to pulling on that Clubhouse lecture that she gave. It really speaks about how we think about money and how that also, the thoughts that we have about money, are we having, loving thoughts about money? And those thoughts that we have can affect how money works in our lives, right? The second piece is, as ANU, we must avoid poverty at all costs. So before we jump in, I wanted to ask, what are some important ways that poverty can be avoided? What are some important ways that poverty can be avoided? I think Master Menyelek, I think I've been saying Aki Antonio all this time. I do apologize, Master Menyelek. I just got away with myself. I wanted to check in really quickly. Is the audio still a bit off? Is the audio still crinkly? It might be. Just let me know. as soon as you can, because maybe I need to do something else. All this time I've been talking because I think it's okay. So if it's off, just let me know and I'll try to fix it. Try to fix it. But again, the question that I have, that very first question is, what are some important ways that poverty can be avoided? Right? I mean, many times we have negative emotions about money, right? And those negative emotions affect whether, like how money functions in our lives. And, it's really important to avoid poverty. And I think one of the first steps is our mindset, that's one of the major things. I do apologize about the static, you all. I do apologize. I don't know why. Let me see. Okay, MGC Randy says, which is Abba Kush, welcome. His answer is becoming financially literate and making wise long-term investments, right? Wise long-term investments. And the woman of Anu, for those of you who are guests, and you too are probably facing uncertainty, or you may consider yourself a financial infant, or you're not sure. The women of Anu are currently being instructed by Chief Yuya on just basic money management skills, and we're getting to expand our knowledge. Some of us not just expanding knowledge, but learning, right? For me, I can say in another couple of months I can expand. Now I'm learning about some of the major important financial terms and different ways that we can invest. And I think education is the very first thing that we can do or use to avoid poverty. Baba Cruz says you can be heard through this. Oh, okay. All right. Well, bear with me and the static, please. This is a very short reading this evening, because it's not, I mean, if we extend and we keep going, that's fine. But the reading, I think, is very short. Imanaya says, answer, saving money, investing money, educating ourselves financially. Yeah, I think the financial piece is very important. That's also a critical piece. Top tier speaker says, seeking to educate and pull out our gifts in order to add value to others. Right. I think that's a major thing. And I know we're talking about financial literacy, financial poverty, and also financial literacy. That's important. But I think there's I think there's also that piece where, if we're not able to do that exchange, and I'm not saying that everything we do is just based off of I give, you give. But if we're not able to freely give and there are times when, some of that movement of money will be blocked. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. The phone's ringing over here. Pardon. Will be blocked. So, the giving, sharing of our gifts, the giving of our gifts to others, and using our talents to, improve others or improve our environment. I think that's an important part of it as well, too. Akuya says, we can avoid poverty by educating ourselves on how to manage our money. True. This is true. Let me pause and put some of these answers on here. I'm just like reading them through, but I really wanted to highlight some of your shares. Again, I apologize for the static in the background, but we'll keep going and building this evening. Top tier speaker says, seeking to educate and pull out our gifts in order to add value to others. I read this one already. We can avoid poverty by educating ourselves on how to manage our money. Yeah. So that managing the money is important. Chief Yuya is on Facebook. He says ceasing laziness mentally and physically helps to avoid poverty. This is true. This is true. And I am guilty as charged. Um, you know, laziness, there's a proverb 24:33. I actually pulled it while studying this strong, and then just thinking about the very next sentence, right? Your point about ceasing laziness. The Proverbs 24:33-34 says, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. So I can say I'm guilty as charged when it comes to that mental laziness. And those things affect us. It's like a rippling effect, because how you do one thing ends up being how you do all things. So that's an important point. And it's funny, when I read this piece in Proverbs, a little folding of the hands, I will always, let me not bring up those sayings, because they're not, let me not bring up the sayings, because then I'll have to explain them. But it just goes to show being diligent is really important, right? Proverbs also tells us that the plans of the diligent leads surely to abundance. So again, thank you, Chief, for sharing that ceasing laziness. It's the diligence and the planning that actually leads to abundance. And many times it's like there's mismanagement of resources that we have been the doers of, and even myself, and that it takes away from the abundance that we should be planning for, right? It takes away. And I'll just read, I didn't have a moment to put up some of the biblical references, but this one is Proverbs 21:5. So if anyone wants to find it and put it in the chat, thank you. I don't think I saw the first one, but the two references that are connected to Chief's statement, ceasing laziness mentally and physically. Proverbs 24:33-34. That might be helpful. And because then I can throw it up on the screen, like bam, so somebody help me. And Proverbs 21, the plans of the diligent leads surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Everyone, who is hasty comes only to poverty. And, that line also reminds me of something that we learned, was it last Sabbath, about, just making investments and being able to look at those investments over the long term, and not making hasty decisions, and, based on, I am talking from the new knowledge that I've learned. I am not an expert, not even but, just thinking about what was shared, it makes sense that you would plan and be diligent when it comes to investments, and not, be very reactionary, which is what is being said here. If you're hastiness actually comes only to leads to poverty, pretty much. All right, Emanaya, paying attention to how and where we spend money and not being wasteful. Right, like that goes back to the reference from our previous bills on on education, where it says we must control. Is it this one? I'm gonna find it. Oh my goodness, where is it? Right. Sometimes we seek, right, in education, paragraph 3 in the ANU way, it tells us that sometimes we seek an extravagant lifestyle that encourages excess and gluttony. So we have to pay attention to where we're spending that money. And you know when we waste resources that we were given to manage, we lose them. It's almost like it bores a hole in your pocket, and you just continuously lose. Oops, I think I touched something wrong. Oh boy. Okay, let me see if I can move faster. Anu Radio said we can avoid poverty by submitting to the Most High's laws. This is true. There's another paragraph that another sentence in the paragraph that actually speaks to the fact that when we live in poverty, we are quicker to violate the laws of the originator. So you think about crime and how poverty actually can put you in a place of fear, right? Because of the beliefs that we have about money, right? And again, I'm pulling from a mixture of places, but also pulling from that Clubhouse, which is really, if you're a guest and you have not listened to it, I'm going to say it again. Go over to Clubhouse. It's also actually on the ANU Life Global channel, the audio for the Clubhouse. How does your money vibrate? Your money vibrate? I don't vibrate yet. But it's there's a lot. I think there's a lot of different connecting pieces that leads to that place or that state of lack of resources. Brother Cruz says, do not borrow unless you can pay within 12 months. ANU Way Foundation. Thank you for pulling that from the ANU Way. The law, once applied, will move you out of the bondage of debt. It also requires one to be very specific with money management. Right. It goes back to Emanaya's point about, paying attention to where we spend money and not being wasteful. Thank you very much. So if the ANU Way Foundations is what we're actually reading from, and Abba Cruz is actually pulling from a reference from there. So it really makes you think about, just how today's culture, y'all. Today's culture. Gosh. Today's culture. So it makes you think about how our culture actually supports us and it guides us. It helps us to maintain a certain lifestyle and avoid poverty in this case. Imakuya Bisa said we can avoid poverty by learning skills that bring income. We can also avoid poverty by not being reliant on the system that is the county social aid food stamps. This is true. I'm going to put it up. I'll put up everybody's responses because these are really good. Yes. It's interesting because you say we can avoid poverty by not being reliant on that system, but many do rely on that system. Many do, and it's interesting because that system then creates a perpetuation of poverty. It really does. Ima Precious says we can avoid poverty by investing in education. Yes. Bringing our value to the community and seeking family fervently. Thank you. Well placed. If I could just take this here and pin it, but it's stream, what's this thing called stream? Yeah, it doesn't have a pin button, so I can't pin it. But yes, education, investing in education is numero uno, and bringing our value to the community, very, very. That's crucial. Then we don't have to become, as Ima Quita is saying, reliant on the system, right? And all the other trappings of the system that keep us in a cycle or can keep us in a cycle of poverty. Thank you. Cruz. Abba Cruz says one should look to least rather than be outright, what? Buy outright. Why am I saying B? Oh my goodness. I just had a whole, mini meltdown in my head. I was like, am I reading B for buy? What? Sorry. Rather than buy outright. Anyway, this tool will assist you with understanding how to retain assets and use value and equity assignments to build wealth. Right. This is true. This is true. I as we're going through this, for anyone who is a guest or anyone who is new, and I probably missed you in the chat, these are all important gems, important ways that poverty can be avoided. And what we see over and over again in everyone's response, not in this one, but in every of the responses, I keep seeing this investing in education, building skills, adding on to our skills. Those things are crucial to help us to avoid poverty. So after Gertrude says we can learn to stay committed to our goals to seek financial security. Right. In that Clubhouse session, it was the midday affirmative. Thank you. Nobody even say, Sister Maria, stop saying the Clubhouse section, say midday affirmative. It was the midday affirmative. How does your money vibrate? Where what was being built on was the idea that also financial freedom is not the same as mental freedom, and financial freedom or even financial security doesn't bring us to a state of mental freedom. So yes, we're talking about avoiding poverty, but I really think it's important to acknowledge that even then there's a level of mental freeing. There's a level of mind work that we have to do, and reversing or changing our mindset that will help to keep us away from poverty. Welcome, Hamza L. Greetings, Brother Hamza L. How are you today? Chris says to avoid poverty is to understand that you are impoverished. Key to avoiding poverty is to understand that you are impoverished. The ANU teaches us to seek knowledge, and wealth will be its companion. Pardon the paraphrases. No, wisdom. We have to seek that knowledge, and then we have to take it and apply it, right? And it's the application that brings the wisdom, right? When we do it, we see how it begins to work, and then we understand we could actually begin to share it with others. So thank you. It's that again, knowledge. So that goes back to education. Again, thank you. ANU Radio is sharing now. Yet a little sleep. This is Proverbs 23. I think I'm behind. Yeah, I'm 10 minutes behind because it says 7:06. Okay. All right. Now I've caught up. So you all have been listening to me reading this for 10 minutes. I am so sorry. I apologize. Thank you, ANU Radio, for posting that Proverbs piece. Is very critical, and it goes back to, getting rid of that laziness, that mental and physical laziness. Abba Cruz says we must be taught and learn how to avoid poverty. Additionally, we must learn about money. Yes, this is true. And this goes back to, breaking those generational curses, because again, generational curses speaks about our forefathers rejecting what was given to them. And so, rejecting what was given to them in terms of what was given to them by the Most High. Because I do think for some who may experience one of the different types of poverty that we spoke about earlier, the generational, there is that you get locked into the cycle of perpetual impoverishment, lack of education, lack of resources. Um, those who are rural, if you are impoverished because of where you live or your location, it just creates a cycle, So I definitely think agree. Thank you. All ANU adults must be financial adults. Yes, I'm working toward the financial adulting. Sister Deidre says, seeking like-minded individuals and community who also avoid poverty like the plague and um, encourage financial literacy, investments, and stability. Yes, it's that yeah, it's that A alike, right? It's that communing and being with others who are your A alikes. You think alike, and as they say, iron sharpens iron. So you have to surround yourself with what it is that you want to be and do. Greetings, Yolanda Addison. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions or please feel free to add, but also, join in the conversation, add on to the build. She shares, you have to start by working. How many people here do not like to work or the idea of it? That's where you begin, removing the psychological stigmas around working. Eradicate entitlement. All right. Akria says, I really can see how poverty is worse than the plague. At least with a plague, it can be eradicated, but poverty remains. That's why it must be avoided. When have we ever seen poverty ending? Yes, it's like a perpetuated cycle. It really is. It really is. And the building up of skills helps with that proper management of resources, right? Proper management of resources. And that goes back to the idea of that Chief is saying about work, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. That's why it must be, when have we ever seen poverty ending? Is your response, sorry, I don't want to ask a question, but is China your response to when we've seen poverty ending? Or is that an example of your poverty will alter the way you think and your decisions will always revolve around that? Right, this is so true, and it pulls you in. Let me go back up and take off Proverbs. Let me highlight two statements, because that idea, that piece about working is very important, like being diligent and planning, those are all connected to that working aspect, a working piece. Yes. Oh, how? I'm going to look it up, but I just wanted to ask how. Sister Deidre says, yep, poverty will alter the way you think. So, I'm rereading it because in my head, I'm already thinking there is a piece here that speaks to poverty. Poverty can cause you to violate laws, the laws of the originator. So I want us to as we're building and sharing, start thinking about some of the laws that we can break, right? That because of being in an impoverished mind state. The very next sentence reads, there is nothing redemptive or virtuous about not being able to sustain oneself or positively contribute to your community financially. right? So, and this is a big piece. I think I touched on this even before. We didn't pause to really dig into it, but it's a big part of Chief's previous statement, eradicating entitlement and putting ourselves in a place where we we consider. I guess we have to reconsider the way we think about work, right? I think and it goes back to the mindset, those beliefs that we create in our minds around money and work and financial stability, things like that. Yes. All right. These are some major cultural and personal being highlighted. Okay, I wanted to move on to the very next, or before I do, Sister Queer says, Deidre Sully and PHS, Skid Row. I've seen how low people are. That last time I was there, I saw a man sitting in his own feces. It was devastating to see what would bring that person to that place. Yeah, greetings, greetings, 6. We are building, so greetings, and we welcome you to the space. This is a space of deliberation, and our current topic and focus is avoiding poverty. All right, so please feel free to share and build on that particular concept. No, not concept, the reality of it. Yeah, Ima Queer, later on in this paragraph, it speaks about how it brings out the worst in you. Like poverty brings out the worst in you. Because there's a fixation. There's a fixation, and then it probably leads to desperation. Right? You've like literally given up any thoughts or ideas about who you are, and for you to get to a space where you would sit there like that, and it does bring you into a place of consideration, but this is why it has to be avoided, has to be avoided. And this is why it's worse than the plague. This is why it's worse than the plague. Imagine living a life every day being afflicted, right? Or in pestilence every day. I guess this is like Egypt. Every new day you get up is a new pestilence. If it's not the frogs, it's the crocodiles. If it's not the this, it's the that. It's one thing to the next to the next. And so every day, poverty will put you in a place where every day you're literally trying, it's about survival. And then after a while, if it becomes generational, this is where just like any sort of, I don't want to use the word hope, but faith would go through the door, and people will lean on beliefs, and we know that the idea of beliefs is based on fear, right? You have a belief system is because there's fear there. Peace, sacred step. Peace, greetings, welcome. Join the build. Join into the build. We're actually sharing a little bit about the important ways to that poverty can be avoided. We have a long list of gems and a lot of ANU focused responses in the chat, and we're building on just the topic of poverty, but also avoiding poverty. Right now, we are in the sentence that reads, when we live a life of poverty, we are quicker to violate the laws of the originator of the law. So as I was thinking about that, I said, we have to work unceasingly to eliminate poverty, because it will cause us to violate laws. So I started looking at some of the, the laws around supporting people who are poor, right? Um, there's there is one law that speaks about harvesting and leaving the fruit on the edges of the boundaries. And please forgive me because I'm not giving the biblical reference. And if anyone knows a biblical reference, drop it in the chat for me. Please help a sister out. Um, but yeah, it speaks to leaving some of the fruit so that for strangers or for those who are poor. And I actually was thinking about how that law can be easily violated, because if you are impoverished but you are family, you do have land, that won't even be considered, right? When we think about tithing, would that even be considered, right? Without understanding that tithing actually does open up a space for us, right? to work toward avoiding poverty, right? Because it's you following a law. And there could be anything else but goodness that can come from that. But I thought of how, again, the reverse of that could be, you have so many mouths to feed, you won't even think about leaving anything for those who are, have less than you do, or strangers, because your focus is, again, very similar to Sister Deidre's point about, if you're impoverished, then that's your focus is zoomed in on just that, where you are, all right, rather than expanding or evolving out of there. It always revolves around poverty. That was her point. All right, let me move forward. Let me see if you can move faster. Because, all right, Safta Arlene says we have learned within our Anu culture that we either invest money or waste it. We are not to be consumers, right? We are not to be consumers. We are not to be consumers. Again, it goes back to that point about the extravagant lifestyle, and always, spending, right? Always spending, and not producing. So if you're not a producer, you're a consumer. And if you're a consumer, then you're not necessarily a producer. You could do both, but if you're a consumer, then you're not a producer. That's how I see it. So I wanted to just pause and talk about the state of poverty leading to fear, right? And then you make irrational decisions, and those irrational decisions are always revolving again around that poverty mindset. So again, it's almost like it creates this cycle, this perpetual cycle that just keeps feeding back into itself. Our crew says impoverished rural areas would in many cases break hygienic laws of Yah. It is difficult to avoid being around unclean items and people. Depending on circumstances, one may find themselves unclean. This is true. Sorry about the this is true, but this is true. When it comes to the laws of cleanliness, and even consuming foods that are clean or unclean, poverty will put you in a place where you will close your eyes and eat anything to survive, and again, it's based on belief, and that's based on fear as well too. I think one of the points Chief brought up in that midday affirmative. Hey, I remember the midday affirmative was, like we have these ideas that, oh my gosh, we need money to live, and the example that was given was like, if you're underwater right now, You actually, pretty much you're going to need air to live, not money, and um, in that case, I think poverty puts you in a space where you don't think about anything else, right? It's you're not considering anything else. So rash decision after rash decision. Um, so yeah, you would violate um, hygienic laws. You would violate hygienic laws. You're gonna eat within your um, you're gonna eat whatever you get. Let's consider that. Let's consider that. It might be a simplistic example, but it goes back to, again, you're quicker to violate those laws because you you're in a space where you feel like you have nothing. You understand? You feel like you have nothing. And so if you have nothing, then, you hear people say things like, what you have to live for, you have nothing to live for. So, which makes me go back to the visual of Ima Kuya's example of the man that she saw in Skid Row, and it's not from a place of looking down at anyone at all. It becomes a place where you get stuck, and it's very easy to get stuck there. Wiz says, my good friend TMS became homeless very recently. Okay. And so there's, make sure to support that person and reach out to them. I'm sorry to hear that. What are some ways that we can avoid poverty, Wiz? Do you care to share one or two ideas that come to mind? Imakuya says there are many who don't want to leave poverty or feel there is no way out of it. Some in poverty want fast money and they violate laws by thieving, robbery, tricking, and the like. Yeah, crime. Yep, crime. Very easily because you think this one thing, this one lick, this one thing is gonna solve all your problems, and you don't realize that it's actually digging 2 additional holes for you to get out of. Very, very true. Those laws, and here we're talking about the laws of the originator of the law. So we're talking about the laws of Yah. We're talking about those 613 laws. We're talking about those laws that help to govern us as Hebrew people, right? But even the violating of other laws, right? Secular and world laws, those then lead to crime and it leads to arrests, and it creates another, it just creates another part of the cycle of poverty. Anu Radio says, true, and eating what you can get leads to health emergencies. Right. So the other piece, this is, I think we have 2 more portions to go and then we'll close out. But I wanted us to talk a little bit about, just like how the brain creates illusions of this separation for us. We create it, right? But we need to, when we think about whether we need money or what we need in order to survive, I kept thinking about, and not just survive, but to thrive, and to be able to be nation builders, right? We think we need money, but we actually need economy. And the basis of economy is people, right? It's our relationships that actually helps to support us and to build the wealth that we're thinking about and we're moving and striving toward. And so in order to be able to do that, again, it's the relationship. I think that goes back to the point Sister Deidre made about, surrounding herself with others who think like her and want to, achieve the things that she wants to achieve, and they want to, create investments and make investments, that's really, I think that's really critical. Wiz says, please make sure you are getting enough sleep after. Oh, okay. Chief Shema, please make sure you are getting enough sleep after these late night streams, even you are rested on the seventh day. Okay. All right. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. So I don't have another question, but I wanted to ask, apart from the laws that were shared, I know Queer shared, crime, thieves, thieving, robbery, things like that. What are some other laws of Yah that come to mind immediately that become very quick to break for anyone who's in a state of poverty? We talked about the health, we talked about the food, hygiene, but are there any others that come to mind for you as you're thinking about, the law and maintaining the law, and how difficult it is to maintain the law when you're in a state or space of poverty? And just to check in with everyone, please, am I still staticky? Is there still static? Please let me know. Sometimes I don't even think. Sometimes I think I lose connection because I don't see anything. So I want to just check in to make sure you all can still hear me, and just to check to see if I'm clear or if it's staticky. Okay, thank you very much. All right, good. So again, what are some other laws that you think can be violated? All right, and yeah, maybe you remember off the top of your head. I know Radio says it has decreased a lot, just a little now. Okay, thank you. Oh, you're talking about the static. All right, good. Thank you. So Chief has shared Genesis 1:28 with us, and the Most High blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, right? And have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Thank you. I want to expand on it more, Chief. So can you please tell me, because I think I forgot. I may have asked something and you probably answered and I totally forgot. So I'm going to wait and I'm going to move on to Precious and think about why the Genesis 1:28. Precious Stephanie says, being quick to anger, in unloving towards brethren, leaning upon own understanding. Definitely. Self-idolatry. Definitely. These are all, this is true. It's so, the list just keeps going on and on, because Ima Akuya gave us about 3, or 4. And so going back to that statement, avoid poverty, right? It's like the plague, right? And it just keeps, there are all these different aspects to the plague, to plague, sorry. There's pestilence, there's physical and mental consequences. And so, it just spreads. It spreads like wildfire, right? It transfers from one to the next. So, avoiding it is really important. We think about, again, going back to the examples that were just shared, being quick to anger, the frustration is there. The frustration is there with everything else that's going on. You probably feel this is not good, that's not good enough. You're just in a space where anything can throw you off balance, and so it's really important to lean on the word. It's really important to lean on the word, even in that. Uh, Rest on the Sabbath. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one because many times it becomes Sabbath, Saturday becomes a day when, many people work, right? And it may not be working overtime. It's just it's a part of the regular day. And if you are in a space um, of living in cycles of poverty, then a day off is not possible. It's not possible at all. You won't consider it. And so what you would do is you would break Sabbath. And thank you for saying rest on Sabbath, because Chief Yuya has a new episode. I think it's episode 57 on his Chief Yuya podcast called The Sabbath, and he goes into he just goes into Sabbath. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it. I have to re-listen to it again before qualified to speak on it. But check it out. Check it out. He goes into Sabbath, and yeah, 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 yeah. Imakuya says those in poverty also become gluttonous and hoard things. True. True, and it goes back to that conversation. I keep referencing the same midday affirmative over and over again. It goes back to our beliefs, like our belief system, and those belief systems they're rooted in fear. And when rooted in fear, they're emotions and feelings and so on that we have to work through, because that's what's driving the fear of not having. So you buy, you hoard, and many times if you're in going through that the hoarding is you're not even hoarding things of value. You're not even hoarding things of quality. It's just, again, a mentality of poverty mindset. So you want more. She says we were commanded to replenish. So that means something was previously depleted, impoverished, I see. So our very first commandment in Genesis was to reverse an effect of poverty. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I didn't even pause and think for a second. Thank you. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. This is true. So the replenishing is an indication of depletion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So too, we apply that to our lives, our community as well. Resources are used. We have access to them, manage them properly by making sure we multiply them. I'm going to put this up, and then I'm going to move on. I see a few other shares as well. Top tier speaker says not getting along with your natural complements or not wanting to be with your natural complements. Yes. I've heard I don't want to talk about what I've heard in the world, but people always say the issues around money can be very straining. So when you talk about not wanting to be not getting along with your natural complement or not wanting to be with your natural complement, many times that rift can come from financial insecurity. I was going to say food insecurity. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about food insecurity. Oh my God. Financial insecurity. And so this is why it goes back to I'll go back to that last statement. Well, not even the last statement in the paragraph, but the one that we're on right now, which is when we live a life of poverty, we are quicker to violate the laws of Yah. So look at how easy it is to violate that law. You know, the law of being mated and being fruitful and multiplying and replenishing the earth. Like, why would we want to violate that? And I think that goes to Sacred Steps' point. Sacred Steps says it is chief alluding also to people remaining mateless or breaking a law. You know, well, if you're mateless, you cannot replenish the earth, right? If you're mateless, you cannot. There is no knowledge and wisdom coming together to produce youth or understanding. So, I mean, apart from replenishing by producing ourselves, right? But not producing ourselves, but producing, making, doing. There's that aspect of being mateless would lead to just cycles of impoverishment, you know. But I think your question may have been to Chief. You know, I'm not quite sure. All right, so I'm going to move into the very last piece. A person can have freedom of images, thoughts, and behaviors. No, we went through this already. So the last portion is poverty brings forward the worst in people. So, you know, even as I said before, when we were placed in a position of poverty, or we lived our lives where the decisions we make bring us to a place of poverty. So we have then selected or chosen poverty, right? Because that's that being responsible for that where we are, or so. When one is in a place of poverty, unable to sustain oneself, fear can take over. And when we function from a place of fear, anything goes. And the 3 points that I have was crime, immorality, and disobedience. Not the 3 things that I identify were crime, immorality, and disobedience. And you know, there's just 3 big categories that kind of highlights all of the others that you all have shared, you know, all of the others that you shared. And so I thought of Proverbs 22:7. It says that the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is the slave of the lender. You know, so again, it brings out the worst, or it brings forward the worst in you. You become, you know, a slave, you know. And I think that piece about the borrower is the slave to the lender brings us back to Master Menelek's very first example, that very first example of, you know, taking out a loan for a car and credit cards and so on. You know, that's how we become slaves to the lender. Proverbs 29:13 also shares that the poor man and the oppressor meet together, and the Most High gives light on the eyes of both. All right, so you know, I kind of wanted to not end there, but offer that toward the end, because you know, I think it's important for us to also understand that, you know, we have to avoid poverty, but also understand that if you're in a space of poverty or impoverished, it does not mean that, you know, it becomes a curse for life, right? The poor, you know, because they are with one of the laws that I was making reference to, you know, there are provisions that those who have create for the poor. But if you're poor, you may not be able to do that. So that would be like you would be breaking a law. But just identifying that with the poor man and the oppressor, even when they meet together, both of them are given light, right? Both of them are given light. So really important to think about, so there doesn't, it isn't just a spiral down into um, perpetual poverty. Deidre Sully says poverty will keep you as a lifelong wage earner. This is true. And you get stuck in the belief and fear of, like money being what you need to survive or to live. So you kind of like, okay, well, I can bet on, if I'm a wage earner, I can bet on having like a steady source of income, right? But that belief is rooted in fear still. Anyway, it's still rooted in fear. Anu Radio shared Proverbs 29:13. The poor and the deceitful man meet together. The Most High lighten both their eyes. Okay, I have the oppressor. That's interesting how the shift, the difference in the word. So we are attached to ideas that we have formulated around money, right? We tend to lean on, like wishful thinking. Okay, the bills are going to be paid, right? And I'm reiterating the idea of poverty will keep us lifelong wage earners. We also say things that God will provide, or we hear people say, oh, we will pray about it, right? Those become the answers, but the truth is, those are not the answers. What we have provided here in the discourse today are answers, right? Definitive answers to avoiding poverty, and what things that we should be looking out for, and how to shift our mindset, removing mental and physical laziness, focusing on education, building up our skills, being wise and discerning about how we spend our money and not wasting resources. Those things are important. Chief shares 7:53. Okay, so I'm in time. She says poverty keeps people unable to see beyond their own desires. In every space that they enter into, regardless of the tone of the environment, they are only focused on what they are questing. Okay, questing. I was like, questing. Okay, questing. They have zero desire to offer assistance or their openness, even to the collective present. These sort of people become information whores and sneak thieves. Sneak thieves. I don't know what is a sneak thief. Sneak thieves. So I see what you're saying, Chief. So it's like poverty becomes an entrapment. It becomes an entrapment. And so everything just revolves around the self. Everything resolves, because you say regardless of the tone of the environment, they are only focused on what they are questing, right? And it will probably go back to when we were talking about, poverty being just being able to satisfy those basic needs. So it's kind of like everything just becomes zoomed in on what those basic needs are. So then it means it's not a question. Then it means that, now I'm starting to think about how distant something like self-actualization becomes when poverty is present. It means that, because again, it says poverty brings forward the worst in people. So let me know what you all think of in terms of, if one is stuck in poverty, how very distant self-actualization becomes for them. She says, so a sneak thief is someone who will take something that doesn't belong to them while craftily avoiding confronting a straightforward approach to all costs. Straightforward approach to all costs. I see. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put this up. So that, because I've been trying to kind of highlight everyone's. So we are at the end of the paragraph on avoiding poverty, part 10. This was the last piece, and I really didn't have an additional question, but if there are any more, points or thoughts that you all want to share or even build on, just, drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. Thank you. MGC says instead of self-actualization, they become self-centered. This is true. This is true. Because then it will go back to the zero desire to offer assistance. It goes back to the zero desire to offer assistance or their openness even to the collective present. True. True. So it's all on me. All right. So thank you. I said MGC Randy, but Abba Ras Kush. Pardon my mistake. I keep looking at all the names and I'm calling the name and forgetting. Okay, we have new names. So I should be using those. Okay, so we'll close. It is 7:59. Again, if there are any additional shares or anything else anyone wants to extend or build on, please drop it in the chat. If you want to answer the question about our own self-actualization, please place your response in the comments below this video. Thank you to the new guests, those people who have, just joined today for the first time. If you are on Facebook, thank you for joining us on Facebook. Thank you for being here on YouTube. This was Shema. You are forgiven. Okay. Okay. This was our Shema ANU. And next strong, we are going to, the Shema ANU will be facilitated by Aki Lo and Aki Zach. But before we go, I want to say it was a pleasure building with you all. Here are some things to remember. ANU is an active and expanding community. Every strong, we have a few events that you can participate in. So all of the new people, listen up. On Clubhouse, on Yom Rishon. You're probably saying, what's Yom Rishon? Yom Rishon is first day. All right, Sunday. So on Sunday at 9 a.m., we have our ANU radio featuring our sister Sham the Joy, bringing you sweet songs and inspirational gems, right? A lot of those gems are gems from Chief Yuya that shared with us. Let me take this off. So she does a beautiful mix at 9 a.m. So you can catch her to kind of open up your strong and get you ready for the strong. So look for our new radio on Clubhouse. And yes, that's our new radio in the chat right there. All right. She just said, remember to hit the like button. So please do. At 12 noon, we have Midday Affirmative, which is always a great build to get your mindset ready for the strong. So join us at midday on Clubhouse. Please look for the ANU Life Global Ministries icon. All right. On YouTube, Enlightenment and Transformation channel on Thursdays at 8:30. Aki Lo leads a movie breakdown as well. So join us for that. And again, every Friday, we have Shema ANU at 6:30. So see you all again. Peace, everyone. Enjoy your Sabbath. Rest well. Thank you, Chief, again. Rest well as well. The new blog. Okay, there will also be a new blog coming out on first day. So every Yom Rishon, right? Remember we said first day is Yom Rishon. We have there's an ANU blog. Thank you, Sister Deidre, who heads up that part of it, or one of the things that she heads up. So go head on over to ANU Life Global Ministries or anulifeglobal.org. And look for the new blog. It's always featured right at the top. It's very easy to find. And see y'all again. Peace, everyone. All right. Peace, peace, peace. Rest well.